You're all set.
All right, perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you to anyone who is joining us on Zoom. This meeting of the TIF Ad Hoc Oversight Committee for 60 to 86 Broad Street will come to order. I will start the meeting by introducing the public comment period. So if there's anyone from the public that wishes to comment at this time, please raise your hand and Debbie will call on you.
As of right now, I don't see anybody with their hand raised.
Okay, I'll give it another second. We know we have a few people on. All good?
All good.
Okay, great. So we're going to move into our next item, presentations, and that is going to be 60 to 86 Broad Street presentation by Mr. Bob Cormier. So I'm going to let him get set up so that we can get the latest and greatest updates on anything related to the TIF process. We'll give us a couple little moments here so he can get his laptop going.
Thank you last time.
I have that one.
Yes, ma'am. I have to get the room, hold on.
Yeah, you just might need permission.
You should be all set now.
Okay.
Are you able to share on the screen?
You can also probably join the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, he's gonna join. There we go.
There we go. We're in.
You haven't muted. Okay, so
Can anyone who is currently on the Zoom please mute yourselves? Thank you. All right, whenever you're ready.
Ready to go? Yeah. So this will essentially be an abbreviated version, I guess, to get everybody back up to speed. The last time that you heard from me was back in April, mid-April, related to the project and introducing what a TIF was. A lot has changed between then and now in terms of progress, and but frankly, much of it is kind of still the same in the structure and the need, and we'll get into that. The reason it's abbreviated is this is really just an update in the project, and then it's just getting aligned on process as a first step. So what's referred to this committee is the creation of a TIF district, which is just a precursor to even be able to introduce a potential proposed agreement. This is just kind of the very first step, but I did want to get everybody back up to speed of where the project is. I think everybody here knows me from the call. I'm Bob Cormier. I believe everyone on the call does as well, so we won't waste too much time there. And this is the team. Again, we have what I would consider a world-class group of architectural firms, civil engineering, landscape design, and obviously between myself and Churchill James, we have some pretty diverse experience in real estate development. So very thankful for this team. We've basically worked nonstop for 2 years to get the project to where it is today. So thank you to them. So just an update on the project itself. This is our beautiful site. In terms of timeline, just following the ZBA hearing, I think we all know this, but just to reiterate, with the initial proposal, we took kind of all the feedback, both positive and negative, into account, took input from the public, the planning board, CED, the building department, and we took that all into serious consideration, and we completely revamped the project. That was submitted on 4/3, a completely new redesigned project, and it conformed to all the technical requirements of the form-based code. So that was the beginning of April, just before actually the first time I presented this at a town council meeting. Since that time, we have gone through the full technical review process. So in terms of the project progress, we've gotten our decision letter from both the planning board and the CED department. Looks like people try to sign that. So the project has essentially been approved for permitting. So with those decision letters, they're stamped by the town clerk, they're official. We just need to work through a list of kind of standard conditions to get to permitting, but for all intents and purposes, the project is approved and it's approved for permitting. So again, the project itself, it consists of 77 residential units. They're primarily one bedroom. It's 6,300 square feet of commercial and retail space, and that's across 3 buildings. These will be high-end apartments, really nice finishes. The likely residents would be everyone from a young professional commuting to and from work, BSU employees and grad students, to even seniors who kind of sold their 30-year home and want a low maintenance, nice manageable property. I've had a lot of folks reach out that kind of fit that tenant demographic. And BSU is actually willing to market this as a project for kind of their adjunct professor recruiting and grad students, which is really exciting. So the project's entirely parked on site. There's dedicated fitness space, there's a lounge, there's co-working spaces, there's ultra premium landscape and lighting, which I think is really going to make this site come together. There's market lights across the patios, and it's going to be really special. Of note, I think I mentioned this the first time, the bowling alley at 60 Broad Street is not included in this first phase. You will see it here, though. We're essentially giving ourselves an easement to be able to use for trash, and we're basically going to have to cross over the property line for the trash and recycling that will technically reside on 60 Broad Street. Obviously, we own it all, so we're writing an easement to ourselves. But you can kind of see it here in the left picture, that kind of grainy area over to the left there. You know, the intention there, obviously, if this first phase of this project goes well, once we get up and running, and depending on what the results of this whole TIF process are, you know, the intention there is to still redevelop that building, not knock it down and go 4 stories, and put a really great restaurant concept in there. That's really important to me, and I want to make sure that we can execute that. But yeah, like I said, most importantly, the project conforms to absolutely everything within the form-based code, and we have our approval letter for permitting, essentially, from both the planning board and the technical review committee. I'm trying to think if there are any other specifics. We can get into questions at the end of this, but we're just essentially working through all the conditions that are required. You can give an example. We have to redo some test pits for the stormwater infiltration system with the town engineers. We're going to do that. We're waiting on National Grid to come take the telephone poles and transformers on the site down. So there's just a list of things that we need to do that will get us to an actual building permit. And just to remind everyone, here's the updated design, and we're really excited about it, and taking public comment and really taking a close look at the design standards. So as you can see, it incorporates mansard roofs, a significant amount of brick accents that tie into some of the buildings heading south on Broad Street and then around the Common. I mentioned the landscape and lighting design. It's really top tier. And you can see that in the formal submission. There's all of our planting plans and lighting plans. You can get really detailed if you'd like to review that. We'll also have 800 plus linear feet of landscape stone walls on the north side. And then the ground floor commercial spaces here, which I'm mostly excited about, are they have expansive high ceilings. There's going to be outdoor space in the rear, beautiful glass storefronts, potentially some awnings. It's going to be very attractive to commercial tenants, and tying back to the TIF, part of what we have worked in our pro forma that we'll review once we can get to the TIF agreement referred to this committee is tenant improvement. And anybody who's ever developed commercial real estate knows that is probably the most important aspect of getting quality tenants. You build what's called a white box, right, which is literally basic mechanicals in generic places and blue board and plaster. The rest of the build out is typically on the tenant, in the space this big, particularly on building A. So if you're looking at the buildings here in the top left, the building to the left, that's 3,000 square feet of commercial. That is prime retail space, obviously street front. That could potentially be $1 million build out depending on the business. So it's pretty much unaffordable in today's market. So what we're trying to do is build into the pro forma some sort of tenant improvement credit where we can build a portion of that out for them or credit that back. That's how you attract quality businesses that want to stay here and invest in the community, because we're investing in that. speaking of the commercial tenant, so we're obviously too early. We don't even have a building permit yet to have anything signed, but just in terms of what we're targeting. So right now they're spec for dry retail, right? Essentially neighborhood retail. What I would like to do in a perfect world is to have some sort of food collective in that front left building. So that's building A. In the right building, a artisanal market, mercado, like really nice artisanal goods and cheeses and wine shop and stuff. That would be in building B. That would be my goal. Again, this is a pipe dream at this point until we figure out how this process is going to go. And then in the rear building related to wellness, that's another 1,600 square feet. So think like Pilates, physical therapy, really high-end gym, something along those lines. And the goal is so the businesses are complementary to each other. You know, when the building on the right is most busy, which would typically be the morning, you know, cafe mercado, the building on the left would be slower, vice versa. And then, you know, the building in the back is kind of irrelevant. There's parking back there anyway. So that's the goal. This is the dream. We have it kind of teed up to execute it. And I'm just trying to be super transparent and honest on exactly what it's going to take to be able to deliver this. So that's the project. And then just to get into the TIF again, you saw this slide before, but tax increment financing, I think there's still some confusion on exactly what it is and how it's calculated. I don't want to get into the agreement and what we're asking for and all those things, but what it does is it's calculating a tax abatement on only the improved value, right? So for round numbers, if your property value is $100,000 pre-TIF or pre-development, you have a tax on that based on the local tax rate. Here it's $11.83 per thousand. If the new value is then $1 million, you've increased the value 900,000. The abatement is only on that 900,000. So you're paying the abatement percentage on the improved value plus the existing value in the base year. So I'm gonna, once we can get this thing referred, the full agreement, and we can talk about this, I will show line by line the breakdown of every single calculation of what the economic impact will be down to the dollar. We'll break it out by the different types of tax that we created. And then we'll get into the pro forma of down to the penny of what this is going to cost to build at this level of quality. So yeah, I think you'll see very clearly why this is needed. And I just want to reiterate, I heard a couple comments at the last town council meeting that bothered me in a sense that we're in a space as a community here with the school district and the town budget. We all know the problems, but a short-term fix of tax revenue here in exchange for long-term economic growth that this project is going to deliver is extremely short-sighted, in my opinion. I think we need to think bigger here. What this project at this quality is going to do with the tenants that we want to bring in, it's going to create critical mass and drive economic activity, support the businesses that we already have downtown. We know all this. This is what I think about every day. So that's why I keep fighting to try to do the right thing here. So again, we'll get into much more of this, why TIF is needed, the realities of financing. We'll even get into the detail, and I have all this content ready to go. It's just a matter of when it can be referred to this committee, and we can bring in whatever experts you want. But the reality of financing and what your debt service coverage ratio needs to be to even have a discussion, it's black and white. So I hope when we can dig into the numbers and finally have some time to work on this together, that'll become apparent. But anyway, that's what a TIF is. So I really want to spend a minute aligning on the process because to wind the clock back here, mid-April is when I presented to the council, not pointing fingers that it's nobody's fault. We just didn't have a process. We being this community in our town didn't have a process to review and approve a TIF. So obviously the brakes were hit, which I think was the right decision. Let's all align on what a process is. And this is how it was laid out to me. And this from our town attorney, obviously did their research and understood what other municipalities do and what's typical and what the state looks at. And this is how it was explained to me. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. This is how I understand it. So an ad hoc TIF committee, which is a subcommittee of the council, that first has to be created. And the role of this committee is to lead the review of a potential agreement and, if approved, the enforcement of that agreement. But before we can even talk about an agreement, the TIF district designation has to go through the same process. So that's where we're at today. Obviously, the ad hoc committee was formed. The non-council members were appointed, obviously, and now we can start the process. So step one is through a sponsoring member bring the legislation for a TIF district designation. That's the first piece that has to be voted on by the council and then sent to the state. That's where we're at today. That's where we're literally sitting today, talking about this legislation. That would then go through the normal process to either be approved or rejected by the council, and then we repeat the same process for the actual TIF agreement. So we have a draft agreement, all the T's and C's. It's based on, I think, a dozen other TIF agreements that have already gone through the state process. We used the same template. We softened it to make it fair and balanced. My goal would be to get that in front of the council and then immediately refer it to this subcommittee. So it can go to Jason, it can go to Bob, it can go to the finance department. We can bring those people in. I'll have 100 meetings with this group if we need to. But I don't think, according to the way I understand the process, that we can get into the agreement until that happens. So this is the order that has been referred to this committee right now. It's quite literally just drawing a TIF district around these parcels as essentially a precursor to being able to consider a TIF agreement. If this is approved, it doesn't constitute any approval or leniency on the TIF agreement. This is quite literally just a precursor to be able to go have that discussion. Obviously I'm biased. This is probably the most straightforward legislation that is going to be part of this entire process. So what does it do? I hear a lot of unfounded concerns of how do we prohibit or limit the ability of other developers to come forward with a TIF. This is the most straightforward way that I could possibly explain it. This is what a TIF district is. This is why these parcels, this TIF district is being proposed as only these parcels. It prohibits any other developer. They would have to go through the same process. So when a council member asks, well, I don't want to do this because how do we prohibit another developer from doing the same? You have the power to do that. And I would be very confident in saying that another site with another project like this is going to be very difficult to try to demonstrate the same hardships and the need for a TIF as this project here. The second thing it does, again, it allows for consideration of a TIF agreement. And then this project and site, it aligns almost exactly to what state and local guidelines are for the use of a TIF, which is in a targeted economic development area, close to transit-oriented development, in a blighted area, in an area that's historically been very difficult to redevelop, i.e. vacant for 20 years, with multiple developers being unsuccessful to build anything quality here. So it checks all the boxes. And I know you've heard all this from me before, but I just wanted to reiterate. So anyway, that's all I had. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to committee members. I'll start with Vice President of the Council, Mary McGrath.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Why are we putting 60 Broad Street in the district if it's a restaurant? I mean, we're just working on your apartment, so.
Yeah, it's in the district, but it's not in you don't have the TIF agreement yet, but it's not in the agreement. It's not included in the TIF. It's in there because we need to have an easement over that property for trash.
Yeah.
So it has to be that.
So you're not gonna try to get a TIF, a tax exempt on that?
On 60 Broad, no.
And are you gonna use the, if it is a restaurant and you have employees, are you gonna use that as your 50 employees, full-time employees that you need to get a TIF?
No.
So why include it then?
Because we have to have
But I
access.
thought you wrote an easement up.
We did, so we have to have access to that property because it's still one parcel. To
Right,
be honest, all of that's going to be irrelevant because we have to do what's called an 81X
yeah,
as part of the conditions. It's in the approval letter. An 81X is basically just on paper combining all the parcels into one lot. So that's going to have to happen anyway.
okay,
But the reason 60 Broad Street is included in the TIF district is because we're going to need to cross over that property line to get trash and recycling. But you'll see very clearly in the TIF agreement, it's the existing 70 to 86 Broad Street.
okay.
And one of the things that I'm going to present in that TIF agreement is what we haven't talked about, and I didn't present the first time, is the improved value of that restaurant that will be facilitated by being able to build this project the right way.
So we're not talking about any of the money or anything like that? Like without the TIF, you said you can't build it?
I'm not going to say can, but unlikely.
Can you show us the study that the feasible study that you did financially to say that without the TIF, it would be very difficult
Oh,
to
yeah,
do this?
sure. Yeah,
And
that's,
the other thing, do you have investors in this?
yes.
So can we see their financials to make sure that they can upfront their obligation if we go forward with this?
I don't think so. I mean, part of our investment agreement is they're under NDA. But it's already funded. Private investment's already funded.
So you can show us that you have financial from them already on your part?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's gonna be required to get financing from the bank, right?
No, it's just that you use that a lot. You know, if you don't get the TIF, it's gonna be a smaller thing. It's not gonna be this, not gonna be that. So I just, we have questions about, show us that you
Yeah,
can do it.
So my intention when the TIF agreement gets referred here, we can talk about it openly, is
Yeah.
full open book, full pro forma, line by line, and not leave until everybody's comfortable.
And my concern is you're not gonna have 50 full-time employees.
Yeah, it might not be 50, and that's not required.
I think that in the new one, if you look at, and I did because they updated that for 2025, because actually you have to go through another thing now. But you should check that.
Yeah, so
Yeah, the EDIP,
yeah, so you're required
yeah,
to generate a certain number that you call based on the businesses, a certain amount of full-time jobs.
right,
The whole development, so when you see the agreement, I think we have 25 in there, that's based on square footage of the commercial space, again, for dry retail.
yeah,
I put 25 in there because, like I said, depending on the results of this TIF, depending on what the project ends up being, I don't know what that commercial space is gonna be right now. So, the point is, we're committing to a number of jobs
yeah.
based off what we know today, assuming we get.
And they're not transferred like because you're gonna have like the beer and the wine, that place where you sit and eat. I mean, you sit and wait for your order to be. You
I hope
still
so.
doing that?
Yeah, that's the plan.
So that's not gonna be from already a bar or a place that's gonna just be over there too.
No, there'll be new businesses.
It'll be
Yeah,
completely new
completely new
businesses.
businesses,
Yeah, because I know you can't transfer a
yeah.
place.
And
But you
like,
should look at the application.
yeah,
I'm pretty
oh,
sure
yeah.
it said 50.
Yeah, and so it doesn't have to be 50, and you have to commit to, we have literally like TIF specialists on our legal team that have done this many times. So you commit to a number of full-time jobs. You have up to 5 years to achieve that because it takes time, obviously, to build those businesses up and hire and all those things. And then the municipality is responsible for the enforcement. So this
Yeah, I mean, they give you grace, like, you don't do it, then they give you a little bit of grace.
you get a cure
then you don't
period.
do it,
Yeah, yeah.
Until they just
I mean,
bring down the hammer on you.
Of course. And of course, the intention is to fulfill the agreement. That's the entire point, right?
Yeah, oh, that was my only concern, because I'm thinking, when I met with you, thinking, yeah, it's not gonna be that
50,
many
yes.
full-time employees.
With the restaurant, sure. What
But you can't
changed?
use the restaurant, can you?
No. So, and that's why the number's going down. When we get to that restaurant, because we're going to do this the right way, when we get to that restaurant, it's probably another 25 to 30 full-time employees
Right,
because it's a 7,000 square foot building.
yeah.
So,
No, I was just thinking required for this, to go through
Yeah.
all this and then,
yeah. So for just this, it's going to say, I believe the number's 25 full-time employees.
okay.
And that's
So you're
with,
hoping they'll pass with that.
yeah. And I think, we have consultants and stuff that have reviewed it. So the gym in the back, like we're not going to have 1099 trainers, or if it's a Pilates studio, they're not going to be 1099, it'll be full-time
Yeah.
employees and with part ownership. It's the same with all the other buildings. So,
All right. Thank you.
Wonderful. I will move on to our two other committee members. I'll start with Fred Chase. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Yes, not with respect to the proposed district as such, but just maybe a couple of other points. I know that you've spoken about this before, that in respect of the revamped plan, the project will have incurred significant unexpected expenses that were not part of the original proposal.
sure. Yeah.
Can you just in very general terms remind us of what you think is the aggregate figure of the difference
Yeah.
represented by those changes?
Yeah, it's north of $3 million. So it's very significant. Now, the reason I don't tout that or bring it up, it is what it is, because I know what the response is going to be, is you knew what was in the form-based code and you decided to move forward anyway. Independently of that, and we have somebody at the CBA here, so we can speak about this openly, right? But on that site, the best, most efficient use to build a quality project was what we came forward with the first time. And I'll still stand by that. However, we listen to the public. I live here too. I understand what people wanted to see. So that's what we did. just generally speaking, that site, as I talked about, it's a 12-foot grade change. So from the corner of 60 Broad Street to the end of the property is 12 feet. It's a full story. There's nothing else like it in the district in terms of topography. It's also a very odd lot shape. It's 6 sides. So it is one of the most challenging sites I've ever seen. So the first iteration of the project, you essentially use the building. Here's one of the examples. Use the building as the retention, right, as for that grade change, and then leverage the grade change to have underground parking. That goes away. You still have to manage that grade change. So the only way to do that is retaining walls. Those retaining walls, because I think it's about 9 feet at that point of grade change, even with bringing that level up, they're over, I believe in the zoning, it's either over 4 or 5 feet. It has to be tiered. So we have literally 2 tiers of retaining walls going down, and they have to look nice. We can't use, kind of like concrete highway blocks, obviously. So that is a massive expense, let alone the fact that we went from 1 building to 3. So that's 3 foundations, 3 sprinkler systems, 3 fire rooms. It's 3 everything. It's 3 water connections. So it's not an efficient build at all. And with the changes as well, we heard, again, we heard the feedback. We had a pretty significant reduction in bedrooms. So we increased the commercial space square footage and then decreased the number of rooms. Again, the residential bedrooms and units are what drives the pro forma in today's economy, right? So we decreased that. Our building expenses went up considerably. It's just the nature of the beast to be able to conform to the zoning the way it was written. And I think we did a very good job figuring out a quality project that fits them. I'm very happy with it now. And the more we've gotten into it in the details, but that's what's driving that increase. And then there's all types of external factors, right? There's tariffs that we have to deal with now. There's interest rates that have increased since we first submitted. So basically in every direction, both our construction costs and operational costs are increasing. And I think Mr. Greenberg can probably verify that. But yeah.
So I think you indicated the total project square footage is about 6,300 feet?
Just the commercial, the first floor commercial space.
Oh, that is, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So the ground floor commercial across 3 buildings. Building A, so if you're looking at Broad Street, the building to the left is just under 3,000. And then building B, the building in the rear, building C is about 1,600 each.
Okay. And I would assume at this point, things are very flexible in terms of actual partitioning for tenants.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you estimate would be the possible number of business tenants that would occupy that space?
Yeah, so it's kind of what we were talking about earlier related to tenant improvement and just to see how things flush out here. I would like to have 3. I would like to have 1 collective business in building A. That's going to be the most challenging because that's a big space. And price per foot right now to even make it work, it's going to be a significant investment for a business, let alone the build out of that space. I would like to have some sort of food collective in there. And I've talked to a lot of high quality businesses that are interested in that. Think like small section of a wine bar, small kind of tap room brewery, and then maybe 1 or 2 counter serve fast casual concepts. You see it a lot in like food halls in the city. I think it's called like Station 19 or something in Providence has done it. Now that's 15,000 square feet, but I'm thinking, and they have between 10 and 15 vendors. I'm thinking down to like 3 or 4. Then you have common seating, common bathroom, like you have live music in there. You can rent it out for event space. So those vendors would work together to essentially foot the bill of the rent, and we would help them to build up. That would be ideal in my mind. Building B, throwing a couple ideas around. I've talked to some businesses that are what I'll call an artisanal market, which I think is a really interesting idea. I don't know if you've ever heard of like American Provisions in South Boston, but something like that. Really good cheeses and some international stuff and a little wine shop, and they have a cafe in the morning. That would be again, I'm trying to build this thing out. So I look at it, like I want to be able to go down there and spend my money there, right? And then in the back will be kind of wellness focused. So that'll, Pilates, a nice gym, something along those lines.
Just one other question. So I think you previously talked about the just on day 1, the aggregate amount of all of the permitting and hookup fees that would be payable to the town.
Yeah.
And you have a figure in that ballpark?
780,
I'm sorry,
780,000.
780,000. Okay.
Yeah, and as I understand it, that would go to the capital fund. And some really good questions were asked during the county presentation last week at the council meeting if funds could be reappropriated, and I think they can go one way, not the other. I'm not a municipal finance expert by any means, but that would go there. And then related to the TIF, that would be the kind of operational income that would come in on an annual basis. So you'd have the existing property tax, you'd have the percent abatement on the improved property tax, you'd have meals tax, you'd have excise tax, and then eventually you'd have the significantly improved value of 60 Broad Street. So it by any way you measure it, it's probably going to be 1,000% increase year over year in tax revenue. That's independent of almost $1 million in connection and permit fees. So, and I do appreciate the water discussion last week as well. I think what they're proposing with the fees is a very intelligent way to go about it.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Greenberg?
Yeah, so pertaining to the commercial spaces, if you could speak broadly on how you plan to attract these businesses or business owners to these spaces.
Yeah, so good old fashioned muscle really is the good answer. So what I'm doing is I have a target list of high quality businesses that I know operate well, that are in good financial standing, and I'm doing all the leasing. We're not hiring a company to do the commercial leases. And I have probably a dozen conversations going right now. Really positive. And my intent is to be very upfront and open and honest with these potential tenants on what Bridgewater is, why I love it, why this is a special community, why we're investing in this space, and why this project means so much to me, and hopefully the community when it's finished, and getting them to buy in on Bridgewater first, right? Obviously, the story's there at the university, right? We're right on top of an MBTA station. We have a thriving university that, by all accounts, we're trying to integrate more into downtown. There's a lot of progress that's happening there. So the types of businesses that I'm talking about, I believe, will do really, really well in this environment. So that's basically, I'm pitching businesses that I want to come here is the short answer.
Okay.
And then obviously walking through the plans with them, showing them it's a beautiful new construction building, really nice design, parked on site. So
I assume that these prices will be expensive in new construction like that, so I feel like
They
that's a
will.
limiting factor. So.
it is, and we're trying our best to keep them down.
Yep.
So it's lease prices, and you get anywhere. I'm not saying Boston proper, even the suburbs close to Boston, it's $40 a foot and up. We're trying to stay around 20, 25 bucks a foot. So we're trying to be very aggressive there and still make it work in the pro forma. And then again, I think the bigger piece is tenant improvement on space this big. There aren't many businesses that could come in and spend, mid six figures all the way up to, for instance, if it was a restaurant in building A, full build out, full kitchen build out, you're probably looking at $1 million. So plus, 20, 25 bucks a foot on 3,000 square feet.
One other question pertaining to the TIF, you had mentioned that other projects are not uniquely qualified like you are for that space. Can you speak to that a little bit more? Because
Sure.
I think that is a pretty heavy sentiment that a lot of residents are feeling. I'm getting a lot of conversations about it on my end where people say, why can't another developer come to the town and say, it's like you mentioned before.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Yeah.
talking about it. So speak to it a little bit
Of
more
course.
and why it is so unique.
Yeah. So I think the same things pertain to the reason to even try to come to ZBA in the first place, right? This site is incredible. There is not another parcel or assemblage of parcels that are anything like this in terms of elevation change, lot shape, the general topography, anywhere in the district. So right off the bat, the site work alone puts it in a league of its own. Secondarily, is just the condition and the status of that property for the last 20 years. Part of what is required to be considered for a TIF and what the state looks at is that it's a historically blighted property. It's been challenging to redevelop, right? So we've literally worked 10 years on a project to get approved. It got approved, it never got built. And it never got built over a handful of units, right? So that just goes to show how challenging the site was. It took us 2 years, but we figured it out. And this is what it's going to take. So that's another reason. I just think the economic development, the timing is another thing, and I can't, I'm not going to apologize for timing in a sense where we are craving economic development more so than ever downtown in the downtown district. We have to increase tax revenues. We have to have businesses come in that allow people or encourage people to spend their discretionary income here. We've heard this till we're blue in the face. Bridgewater has one of the highest area median incomes anywhere in the area. So I think $110,000 is comparable to Duxbury. But everybody spends their money in Easton, right? So we need to change that. And I think when you create critical mass in a downtown district like this, all the other businesses are going to be uplifted. One of the biggest supporters, I'll say, is a restaurant across the street, right? And he knows exactly what we intend to do here, which is potentially multiple hospitality businesses. And he's the biggest supporter because he understands critical mass. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
Thank you.
yeah.
Perfect. So a lot of my questions were asked, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because that means that as a committee, we are gelling as far as what's going on in our heads about what we should be asking. But one thing that you did briefly touch on the impacts of the water and sewer that you received via the presentation, but what type of outreach and conversations have you had with DPW specifically as you've evolved the project to see what the impact would be on water and sewer?
Yeah, so we have our, with DPW directly, we haven't because it's part of the technical review process. So we've been instructed and guided through the process. We submitted all of the required documentation before the project is permitted. DPW has full review of basically a will serve both water and sewer. What we did do was just an analysis with our civil engineers, what the project is going to generate in terms of water demand and wastewater. And provided all the backup data. When I had originally presented, that was data directly from, I think it's Environmental Partners, but their report with what capacity we have today, what we will have in the future, and then what this project needs. It's less than 15,000 gallons a day. So I forget the exact figures, but it was literally less than 5% of the available capacity that was in that report. But anyway, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in the subject, but just wanted everybody to be rest assured that we can't build the project until DPW has full review.
Perfect. And just a bouncing off question of that, when you did your analysis, was the 15,000 gallons per day in reference to also the commercial space or just the residential space?
Was not including 60 Broad Street, obviously not
Okay.
part of the project, but yes, includes the commercial space.
And my last question, because I know that even in my conversations, everyone agrees that something has to be done. Everyone agrees that we can't continue to look at that site in the way that it is and expect it to change or expect another developer to come in and not have the same problems and gripes that you have had. You've exhibited all of the reasons why this potentially would be great long-term for Bridgewater, but what would your message be at this point in time to those in our town that are still hesitant about giving, now after they saw water and sewer rates that could potentially increase overall, what would you say would be your messaging to anyone who's hesitant about giving any type of a quote unquote tax break to a developer during these economic times when the town clearly needs every dollar that we're generating?
Yeah, I think it goes back to my previous comment of, I think it's a bit, I hate to use the term short-sighted because it sounds derogatory, but that's not what I mean. I think we need to prioritize long-term economic growth in this community to stabilize, right? Where when you see, it's hard to talk about without hard numbers, and I can't wait to get into that with you, but we're talking about, in the general scheme of things, in terms of the budget, a minuscule amount of tax revenue that would be abated. And the overall revenue that'll be created by this project is, like I said, it'll literally be over 1,000% increase. And I can't wait to get into those numbers, but that's what I would say to those folks is, first of all, I would ask them if they even know how to calculate what how a TIF is calculated, right? Because most people don't. And that's the point here. And that's part of the challenge is it really is education. I wouldn't expect people to understand that. But that's what I want to spend time doing, going line by line, walking through the calculations and then bumping that up against, I couldn't tell you another project, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but where a developer's gonna sit down, open up all the books, show every line of the pro forma, every dollar that's been spent for the last 2 years, and show where the reality of our financing, and then what type of project we want to build. And, shame on me for trying to come out and be transparent on exactly what we needed to make it work, and then everybody's trying to negotiate down. I should have just asked for 20 years at 100%, right? And then we could have negotiated down, but that, I can't say it enough that I'm trying to do this for the right reasons. And I want to enjoy this project too. I want to raise my kids here. So this is, I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm trying to turn over every stone to be able to pull this off. So
Can I ask one more question, just
Of
to
course,
piggyback on what you were saying about
Yeah.
the gallons per day? So 77 units, what is the average bedroom count? I know is it all two? Is it
it's mostly one.
and two?
It's mostly one.
Okay, so is it
70% one bedrooms. I think it's 101 total bedrooms.
101?
I have one question.
Yeah, okay.
So you're saying that, you should ask for 20 at 100%. So TIFs, we can do a TIF, but when you do 50%, right?
You can do anything. So
How low can it go?
the TIF is between 5 and
Not for years, but the percentage.
between 5 and 100% abatement, up to
Okay,
20 years.
okay. And we can't go less than 5 years for TIF. Like, we can't say we're gonna give you a TIF for 3 years. It has to be at least 5?
At least 5.
Okay,
So a TIF agreement is between 5 and 20 years, up to 100% abatement for those up to 20 years.
okay.
Any other circle back questions that anyone has?
And again, we'll get into the calculation, but that doesn't mean, even if it's 100% abatement, that doesn't mean that we pay 0% taxes. And I'll walk you through line by line with the calculations.
Has the assessor done the taxes? Isn't the assessor supposed to do the taxes? We have that by her?
Yeah, so that, I assume that's gonna be one of the experts that you'll bring in.
Okay,
And whatever meeting we want to bring them in. Basically, how it works is in the base year of the TIF. So let's say that's fiscal year 26. The assessor will do an assessed value of the property at that time. That becomes the base year. Let's just say for a round number. Right now, it's at 1.4 million. These are real numbers. 1.4 million for those sites. At our tax rate, I think it's around $15,000. Call it is the property tax. That becomes the base year. As soon as the assessed value increases, that's when the TIF kicks in. So, well, that's when the TIF abatement percentage kicks in.
right, the first year.
Plus, so usually it's like a year or two in the rear. Sometimes it's not until the certificate of occupancy, but then it jumps dramatically. So essentially, the higher the assessed value, the more taxes we're going to pay anyway. I mean, we have very good analysis, very good comps. The bank has appraisal, like all that stuff. We very confident. We think we know the project will be worth when we get CO. And it's a lot less than what we're building for, which is part of the scary part, but that's the way it is. So in that first year, you can imagine, call it 15,000 in taxes plus the percentage of base abatement of the approved value, and then call it year 3 when we get CO. It's the same calculation, but that jumps because the assessed value is going to jump considerably. I mean, we could go from call it 1.4 to 8 million to 16 million in year 3. But that percentage doesn't change. So obviously the total that's being paid is considerably higher. And then not even year 1, year 0, you get the 780,000-ish in revenue. So you're never, my biggest frustration in this is when people repeat that it doesn't cost the town money in air quotes. It quite literally doesn't, and I will die on that hill.
I think they say that because like right now, we get that money from that land. And there's no attachment to it.
You get 14,000.
Right, 14,000, nothing attached to it.
Yeah.
So once we get the money from you with the TIF,
Mhm.
we have to attach the money. Now we have to pay for when the police come to you, the fire department, the, transportation for kids, the schools. So there's attachment to yours. So we can look at it and say, okay, the cost of the fire, the police and all that in the school minus the money that you're giving us.
Mhm.
And that would be the true tax. Because right now, there's nothing attached to that money that we're getting.
For
So,
sure, but
yeah.
it's not generating any economic development. It's actually,
No, but that's why they say it does cost the town something, because they know that your tax money that you're being saved on, or that you give us, is going to go to other things.
of course, yeah. And
And that's why they
that's all
say
part of the analysis. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why they say it, because it will cost us something right now. That doesn't cost, yeah, it's ugly and it's not doing anything, but
Yeah.
it doesn't cost us anything.
It's costing you BSU enrollment, I can tell you that for that's.
I don't think so. I've looked into the FSU room, that has not with it.
Well, I can say it definitely hurts the overall economic growth and the appeal of the town. As someone who sells homes in the town and surrounding towns, I can tell you when I have clients that will compare and contrast, say Bridgewater versus Rainham versus Easton, even Middleborough, 9 times out of 10, they're choosing another town because of more economic opportunities, where they can literally leave their house and in 10 minutes go to a restaurant or have more than one grocery store or have that specialty shop that they absolutely love. So I do think that it is costing the town by just allowing it to sit the way that it is, because it's not a good representation of who we are as a town and what we pride ourselves on. That site does not match our median household income. It simply doesn't.
Such a good point. I actually lost the first transaction so far a month ago. Because I do buy and sell residential real estate, represent folks because of downtown. Quite literally, they pulled their offer. It's not even being able to walk to a restaurant or a shop. It's about being able to walk downtown without fear. It's a scary sight. It wasn't safe. It's still not safe.
Does anyone have any other comments or questions for Mr. Cormier?
Just one thing, if I may, I know that in your slide deck, you made a reference to the project as a proposed partnership with the town, which I think it would be. And I think justifiably so, and I think that's desirable. I think about the McElwain School development, which has been widely acclaimed to be highly successful. And it was arrived at by means of a partnership between the town and the developer.
Mhm.
And I honestly think that for the town as a municipality, or for the town's people to think that the entire burden should be placed on a developer alone, given the fact that over a span of 20 years, we're saying, there has been no effort to develop that site. It's unrealistic. So
Well, there's been a lot of effort. There's no success, which is an important part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that exactly this manner of partnership is what's called for in order to anticipate success.
I appreciate that. The McElwain project, I agree, very well done. And a little bit different of a project. It's
Well, right.
obviously affordable, and there's an affordable aspect. Is there any commercial? I don't think so. I think it's just residential. So a little bit different. That's one of the, when you're trying to calculate what your potential appraised value would be, that's like the most important number that the bank's looking at. What's your completion appraised value? You're obviously using comparable properties in the area, right? There hasn't been a development like this of this quality, mixed use ever in town. So it's the McElwain is one of the comps that we use in terms of what the average unit should appraise for, and you extrapolate that out to the overall value of the building. Obviously we use the Axis and Viva, and to be honest, we take McElwain out of it because their assessed value is so low. So I wanted to take that out of that to make sure that we have a realistic assessed value going forward. So it's not an exact science, but you do the best you can with the comparable properties. Yeah. I agree. And today, I mean, just generally speaking, you have to have a partnership with the municipality that believes in the project, because the reality of the economic environment is you can't go execute something like this without it. So, at least on this site.
Anyone else have any follow-up questions? Okay, great.
Yeah, I do. Are we approving this right here as it's read? Is this what
I
we're
mean,
going
I think that we have,
for? To recommend to the town council?
yeah, I mean, we have the ability to amend it, I would think. I mean,
Well, I'm just
I think
thinking,
that we
no,
should
I was just-
probably,
It does say 50 new permanent, but we're just recommending it to the town
Mhm.
council and going over it there.
So that we can
What page you point out?
the 50 full-time
It
hours,
says
that's in there.
50,
Oh, okay,
50 new
Which is,
full-time.
it honestly doesn't even need to be in there because that's what's in the agreement. So it'll be covered in the agreement.
Yeah, Well, this is not common anyways. It's-
This is just the initial step so that we can
Yeah.
cross the bridge to actually have an agreement brought forth to the town council. So then we can refer it and do our work after that.
And as I understand it, that can be done coterminous, so it's really up to this committee of when, I'll take your lead on when the agreement's ready, all the analysis is ready, so.
I think our next meeting is August 6th. Did you say August 6th?
Our next meeting, yes.
Yeah.
For this.
So we could potentially introduce the legislation there if you want to. It's completely up to what y'all think is best. But the fact, I will say the reason, I'm not trying to rush this process by any means, but you have to keep in mind, it's been going on since April, but not trying to rush the process. What I'm trying to rush is to get us back in this room with all the experts so we can do the actual work and go through everything.
No, and I don't think anyone in the room thinks that you're rushing the process. I think we're all very much aware of what any delay when there are already financial constraints at play will do. I mean, before this, we weren't talking about tariffs.
Right.
We were talking about interest rates, but we weren't talking about how they were dramatically impacting the overall project as a whole. So now that we have that information, I think time is of the essence, but that doesn't necessarily mean that rushing through the agreement process is something that we should do. We should just get to a place where we're actually able to have those constructive conversations. Because we can't get to an end result of a yay or nay vote by the town council if we don't get to that point at least. Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Cormier before we move on? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So we're gonna move on to our discussion. So we kind of just started the discussion process of where we want to see things move forward. As you can see, we do have our next meeting August 6th. My plan for that meeting was for Mr. Rulli to join us at that time. He did provide us with a packet this evening, but I do think that it's important to get his input and his knowledge base on where we stand as the project will potentially unfold or not unfold as the person that's been dealing directly with Jason and with the state. I think it's very important for us to hear directly from him and ask questions on a CED level versus having Mr. Cormier here asking it from the developer's perspective. So does anyone have anything that they specifically would want to see, number one, on an agenda, but number two, to get us to a place where we're comfortable having an agreement sent over as a first reading for town council to then be referred back? Is there anything that anyone needs for us to be able to get to that point, other than speaking to Mr. Rulli and seeing where we can go from there? I wanted to open up the floor for everybody.
This is just based on whether we make it a district or not. It has nothing to do with the TIF right now. Is that what we're
Correct.
talking about? Okay.
But it's also having a discussion point of what our next steps need to be to not only get this referred back to town council, but to get us into a place where we have the agreement in our hands via a first reading at town council, so that then it can be referred to us and what people may need to get to that place. If there are any holes based on Mr. Cormier's presentation or things that you would like to see Mr. Rulli touch on, I can make sure that he touches on those things when he comes to talk to us.
What would you need the date by? Say if I can't think of something right now. but-
So I mean, I would say giving me until, or giving you until like a week prior,
Okay,
because whatever it is going to have to end up on.
so it'll say like
as an
July
agenda.
31st?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if you can get me
I think that's
any concepts or anything that you might need clarity on a CED perspective or the application perspective, I wanted him to kind of be able to weigh in on that too, since
Okay.
the council that we actually have to have this go before does not meet regularly. So we have to take that into consideration as well. So I think it'll be a fruitful time for him to come in, and it might fill some holes. But if there's anything specific that you know he could potentially answer,
Sure.
or if there's a question or something that Mr. Cormier could potentially answer, I'm sure he would come back and make himself available.
Whatever you want, 24.
So, does anyone have anything that they want to discuss as far as next steps or anything that they might need that comes to mind right now before we move on?
Well, I'm wondering whether, would it be appropriate to consider this evening making a recommendation for approval of the order as it stands so that we could actually create the district? Well, with the council's approval,
Sure, are you making a motion?
I would make that.
Do I have a second?
And just to clarify, this is making a motion to send a
This back as
recommendation
referred.
to, yep, to create a district.
That's right, this order.
Isn't Mr. Rowley, that's what he's gonna come and talk about?
So we have two options. We can either refer this back to council now, that we have a motion on the table, we just need a second. So we either have that, where we're bringing this right back to council, so it was referred to us to review. And then from that point on, when we meet with Mr. Rowley, the process of getting that agreement can potentially be in front of us for maybe another August meeting. So it might not necessarily be for August 6th, but it might be for the following meeting.
We have a council meeting on the 5th, a special meeting, and then the next is like the 16th or something.
15th. I don't think you can get anything on the agenda, it's passed.
So the 5th.
Would
Yeah,
have
it
to
would be on the
by tonight.
15th, but it would be for the 15th. For,
Today's Wednesday, it would have been like 10, 9
Mhm.
I mean, unless Debbie, you know.
Again, don't want to rush it. If the plan would be then to, actually, I'm not supposed to speak right now, I'm sorry.
it's okay. Okay.
The plan is what?
So I think the overall goal, my goal, at least, in all of this, I don't know if anyone agrees, we do have a motion that we need to either second or not, would be I wanted to hear from both Bobs first before we gave our recommendation, given that we did have, and we do have that mid-August meeting. We do have some time to get Mr. Rowley in front of us, get additional information, get some more questions answered, and then be able to recommend or not for that TIF district.
I
So,
think that's a good idea. I'd like to
Okay,
hear
I'll
from
withdraw
him.
my motion.
perfect. Wonderful. So that will allow us to have that next meeting and then hopefully set another one for after our real scheduled council meeting.
Mhm.
So,
At that real scheduled council meeting, we could also introduce the legislation of the agreement. Okay. So that after that, we can get to work.
because we would be recommending at that point or not at that point, whether the district should be the district. Okay, so anyone else have anything that they want to discuss? Wonderful. Perfect. So next will be another public comment period. So I'll open it up to anyone that may have something to say.
Hi, my name is Janet Hanson. I don't have the raise the hand feature. I don't know why.
That's
So
okay.
Janet Hanson, Pleasant Street, Bridgewater. I just had some comments. As far as getting to one of the businesses that Mr. Cormier is talking about is a restaurant. And he's talking about basically a bar. And when people have been thinking about a restaurant in town, they're thinking of a family restaurant, a sit down, eat family restaurant. What's being described by him is not something I feel Bridgewater needs. We have enough bars, we have enough all that. If people are looking for a nice, restaurant, sit down and eat, what he was describing, I don't think is acceptable. And we don't need to promote it for the students. You're going to have people living up above it. I just think that's the wrong business to be promoting. And you have no idea exactly what's going in there. I don't think. But the other comment I has is down the road, if this is approved, what happens if the businesses fail? Like, what happens as far as collecting taxes down the road? Is it, the developer's still going to be responsible for those taxes, regardless if there's any businesses within those buildings. Am I correct in that? So that would be something I would like an answer on. I personally don't think we need a TIF. But, I just not sure, the businesses that are going in is not necessarily what people are looking for. It's not family oriented. And I don't agree that the downtown is not safe. I'm assuming he might mean crossing the street. But I don't think that we're not safe down there. And if it's not developed, how is that going to affect, saying that if it's not developed, then the place isn't safe? Developer or not, you're still going to create more foot traffic. You're going to create more traffic. So how is that going to make it more safe? just basing on the comments that he had done. Specialty shops would be nice. I wouldn't, something that is user friendly. Everything around here is more nothing wrong with them, but nail shops, tattoo shops, bars, alcohol stores. There's nothing to go downtown for and shop for a gift. Those are some of the things I would be looking for, like we used to have. But I just question, no guarantee any business will stay there. What happens down the road if that's the case? Taxes are still need to be paid, correct? And so there's a lot to consider. And that's all I can think of right now. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Janet. Anyone else wish to speak? You can unmute yourself.
No one raised their hand.
Okay, great. No one wish to speak.
I'm good.
Okay, great. So with that being said, we are going to be able to adjourn till our next meeting on August 6th, 2025 at 6 p.m. It will be in this room. It will also be a hybrid meeting. So anyone in attendance now that could not come in person, please join us via Zoom. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.